today? I'm going to now call to order the June 24th meeting of the Planning Commission. Mr. Paulson, could you please call the roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Kane?
Here.
Commissioner Hanson?
Here.
Commissioner Talasfor?
Here.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
Here.
Vice Chair Badami?
Here.
And Chair Birch?
Here. And would everybody please stand and join Commissioner Talasfor in leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Which stands.
Thank you, Commissioner. The town of Los Gatos strongly encourages active participation in the public process, which is a cornerstone of democracy and essential to the Planning Commission conducting its business on behalf of the town council and the citizens of the town. There are several ways for members of the public to participate. You can do a written comment, fill out a written comment sheet card for any item which is not on today's agenda, and you'll be called to speak for 3 minutes on that item. There are 2 opportunities for members of the public to participate. I just totally said all my notes backwards, but all right. Sorry. You get the idea. Okay. You may also speak on any agendized item. Also, please fill out the card. They are actually behind you on the seat backs. Bring them up to staff, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission on any item which is a part of the agenda. We also always appreciate any written communications. Emails will come to us. They assist us in our review of the agenda items. You are always welcome to do that. Staff makes sure that they come to us. For anyone who does intend to speak this evening, I would ask that you come up to the podium and adjust the microphone so everyone can hear you very clearly. And please state your name for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. There's lights right there. When the yellow one comes on, you have 30 seconds. When the red comes on, your time is completed. Our first item tonight is approval of the minutes. We need approval of the minutes for June 10th of the commission. Minutes were passed out in our packet for this evening's meetings. Are there any corrections, additions, or notes for the meetings? Commissioner Talasfor?
I don't have any notes or what I was curious about is that I like how the minutes reflect what the applicants and the public have to say. It's too bad that there can't be any, when it says commission members ask questions, it's too bad there can't be a summary of the questions, because I think in the minutes it would give a much more cohesive understanding about what the discussion was. So that's a comment, whatever.
Yeah, and I can certainly appreciate that. I think since we have the video, people can really watch the meeting and understand that. But what we did do this time was we actually put the direction in the minutes. So in past minutes, you'll remember that we might say, commission discussed the matter and provided direction. And then we would put the period, but no one would know what the direction would be. So this time we thought that the value of making sure the direction was clear and in the minutes was kind of it towards that same spirit.
Yes, and I appreciate that. And you're right, that was good. Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move the approval of the minutes.
Wonderful. With second, Commissioner?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Are there any requested continuances this evening?
There are not.
In addition to their service on the Planning Commission, members of the Commission serve on several town committees. Do we have any reports this evening? Commissioner Kane?
The Historic Preservation Committee had a very busy afternoon today. We reviewed an application from 78 West Main for exterior modification of historical building. 136 Tate Historical Neighborhood wants to extend the first-story addition. That was approved. 194 Villa Avenue requested a two-story addition. That was extended with further guidance. They'll be back. 215 Alexander wants to modify a pre-1941 family residence. Guidance was given. They'll be back. And 145 Glenrich Avenue came back again, was given additional guidance. They'll be back again. We also We also reviewed the demolition policy for the town, and I'm asking Commissioner Tom to give us that report. Commissioner O'Donnell.
We were requested to review the fines portion of the demolition section, which presently provides really a narrow scope for determining the fine. Two of us on the Historical Review Committee did an initial draft. We will circulate that tomorrow to the committee and to the staff, and that will then be notified to the public, because ultimately we will be adopting a proposed modification to that policy. In addition to that, having reviewed the section concerning fines, some of us felt that it might be also good to look at the question of someone who perhaps initially violates the section, but then completely steps back and recovers and spends the money to correct it, and whether that person should be treated as if they had just made the mistake and no ability to correct financially. So we're going to be circulating a draft on that with this, although to the best, that has not yet been sent out. And both of those then will come back, and the public will be notified. And ultimately, if it's adopted by the committee, it will be sent to the town council for their consideration.
Oh, that's great. Are there any other reports? None? All right, we have no items on the consent calendar this evening, so we will move to our verbal communication portion. I do not have any cards for anyone who would like to speak on anything which is not on tonight's agenda. So seeing none, we'll just move past that. And we will now move to the public hearings portion of our agenda and consider item number 1, Architecture and Site Application S-14-125, requesting approval to construct a new second-story addition to an existing single-story residence, make other modifications with reduced setbacks, and exceed the maximum allowable floor area ratio on a non-conforming property zoned RM 512. This is APN number 529-11-006. May I see a show of hands of all the commissioners who had an opportunity to visit the property? Wonderful. And you're going to be giving us our report tonight.
Thank you. Good evening. The applicant is proposing to construct a first-floor addition, new second story, and an attached garage within a modified rear setback. The town code for non-conforming lots allows any rule of the zoning, including front, side, and rear setbacks, to be modified so that the building and use are compatible with the neighborhood. The applicant is requesting to reduce the rear setback to 18 feet from the minimum required 20 feet in order to accommodate an attached garage. The second part of the proposal is a request to exceed the maximum allowable floor area ratio. The resulting proposal would create the largest home in the immediate neighborhood in terms of FAR and square footage. In terms of architecture, the current plans do not incorporate the recommendations of the architectural consultant. While there are other two-story homes in the immediate neighborhood, the proposal will have a larger two-story visual mass at the front of the home. Staff recommends denial of the application because it would create the largest home in terms of square footage and FAR in the immediate neighborhood and would create a non-conforming rear setback. Staff could not make the findings for the request to exceed the floor area ratio contained in Exhibit 2 of your packet tonight. This concludes staff's presentation, and we are available for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Commissioner Hanson?
I have a question, and it pertains to actually the applicant's letter, and they might need to answer it themselves, but they made a statement that in one of their letters that the combination of the house and the garage did not exceed the floor area ratio, and I wondered, is there some other way that we could possibly calculate floor area ratio other than the way that it's presented in the table?
No, so the town code specifies garage FAR separately from the living FAR.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Commissioner Kane.
The town architect wrote his view of the matter and proposed a number of seemingly reasonable compromises in the design. I don't see any of those suggestions incorporated in the final product. Is that correct?
Correct.
Do you know why?
They provided their justification letter, and some of those reasons were due to the construction, maintaining the foundation. Some of the other concerns, I believe, were for preserving the existing architecture of the site and also retaining the desired amount of square footage.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Commissioner Hanson.
I had one other, are you aware of what the current number of bedrooms is in the house, before any renovation?
Sure. So sheet 2 of Exhibit A of the plans shows 2 bedrooms existing.
Oh, so sheet 2 is the existing down here. Okay, I thought that I wasn't sure. Thank you.
And then I just have one quick question, just to confirm. This was originally constructed in 1948 and does not currently sit in any type of a historic overlay zone?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? No? Thank you. All right, we will now open the public portion and call our first speaker, Cliff Peterson. Is that correct? Huh? Isn't he the applicant? Oh, I'm sorry, the way it was written here. Okay, I apologize. I thought you were speaking for the applicant. I apologize. We'll call, I have mine out of order. Stephen Arnudo?
Yeah.
Did I say that correctly?
That's me, yeah. Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. My name's Stefan Arnaudo, and this is my wife, Amy Arnaudo, and we're the applicants at 5 Agresta Court. So we are here to talk about the 41-foot variance in the 2,000 square foot allowable space, as well as the 2-foot offset in the garage. Just a quick note on the makeup of the neighborhood is currently it's around 50% of rentals, and there's a 3-story apartment complex behind us. And the rest of it is new single families as well, that one of them's here tonight, and they're excited about the remodel because they're looking about doing the same on the same street. Just from the perception of when we were going through the planning process, things we considered and some of the reasons why we came up with the final design that we do have. One of it was to maintain the look of the original house with the porch, because it's been in my family since my grandmother came. The one we're living in and the one next door have been in our family since the early 50s. So we did want to maintain the porch and the roof line and the front facade that we kind of have and just go upwards. The other thing was the reason we're going for a larger footprint is because we do plan on growing the family. Right now it's just my wife and I, but we do plan on growing that. We do work at Cisco Systems, so we do have a lot of calls, so we do take calls at home, so we have the need for an office during late night calls and so forth. And her family's from the East Coast, so they travel out a lot and spend extended time with us. So to try to fit all those people in a 2-bedroom house is next to impossible. That's also the reason why we're asking for the great room upstairs. That is a desire around California in general, and we did try to minimize that footprint to not go over the exceeding variance. So that was something as far as the personal reasons we did it. Some of the other things was, as we mentioned, it is a remodel, not a rebuild. So if we took the house down and completely ghettoed it, we could probably get around some of the flow, but we did want to maintain that lower footprint without having to completely demolish the whole house. So we did want to maintain some of that original flow. And we're not really making the kitchen bigger. We're actually just trying to extend it out because the staircase takes up a lot of that footprint now to go upstairs. So we wanted to make it not a pull-through kitchen, but a roundabout. So that is that extension to the back as well. And we did try to make adjustments to minimize the variance by taking the rooms way down so they're a lot smaller. And then the other thing was we did have the U-shaped design. So the variance we're requesting is actually in the back, which actually isn't visible by the neighbors or based on the view line of the apartment either. Some of the stories, they can't even see where the extension is into the backyard because that's like dead space because it's a U. So those are some of the reasons we did what we did and didn't maybe take the recommendations of the architect. For the offset piece, one thing we did considering is the variance is just on the garage itself. The rest of the house is past the 20-foot variance itself, so it is actually further up. And the reason we did go back also is to keep that step garage look so it doesn't look like the whole house is sitting on the street. So we did want to kind of offset it backwards, so that was considered to minimize the scale of the house on the street. The other thing was to increase the usable size of the garage, because when the house was built, there wasn't as many rules and regulations on the offsets. So we literally go from a 1 foot, which is there now, to an 8 foot. So with the offset of the neighbors being only 11 when it's supposed to be 20, we didn't want to build right up on their backyard. And then also we wanted to stay within the regulations of the offset on the side of the garage. So that's why we're going to 1 foot or one garage. So we're actually adding the 2 feet just for storage to make it more functional. So those are kind of just comments that we have and just kind of our logic when we were designing the process with our architect. Thank you very much for your time. And we're here for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Talasfor?
Thank you. The town architect consultant gave us a very detailed letter, and I know you've read it.
Mm-hmm.
And your architect as well had answered
Mm-hmm.
to some of those.
Yep.
So it seems that, as far as I'm concerned, that front porch being, reconfigured as far as the slope of it would really add a lot to creating a less than visible mass that we're seeing right now. So can you tell me if you would consider doing that, and why not, if not?
Actually, that's a little bit more technical than I'm.
Yes, my name's Cliff Peterson. I'm the architect for the young couple. The question of the front porch is one that it could go either way. It could be elevated to diminish, I guess, what the town architect thought was the disproportionate height of the second floor. I was looking at it more from the context of the small scale, the original feeling of the front porch. Now, if the board commission thinks that it would look better elevated, it could be the pitch could be changed. And
Okay.
that's it's a minor item.
It actually is, but what it does do, if you look at it, is that I drew it up here. It actually unifies the front, that roof form to the front bedroom, I guess, that has the roof on it. So actually, it would help a lot, as he said, and it would unify that roof. So
Where the valley of the the bedroom coming out toward the street.
yeah, on the first floor.
The valley lines up where the roof pitch is now. Then there would be a modification there. The valley would change, and that might not have as good a final result as the way it is right now, maintaining the existing porch roof.
But you think you could then, but you would agree with the town architect that would be a slight change, that could, the roof pitch would be a slight change
it's
that
a
would
change
actually.
that could be
And I think that's
incorporated,
important,
yeah.
because I think the last thing you want is to have this image of the second floor that just is there. Okay, I don't think you want that.
We'd have
So-
to study the adjacent roof line and the valley
could-
intersection and how that would come
Right,
together.
but you could do that.
It could be done.
Okay,
Yeah, I don't
and
see a problem with it.
Okay, well, your letter
I prefer it the way it
indicated-
is, but that's.
I understand, because that's what your letter
Yeah.
said, but just because I think it would work too. Okay, so you would agree to that? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Badami?
Back to that letter, which is Exhibit 7, dated March 8th. Your comment, item number 2, can you explain how moving a second floor back would increase square footage? I'm not an architect, but common sense tells me it would decrease floor area, square footage.
If the kitchen extends beyond sort of the existing wall line. It was the development of the interior staircase. The house does not have a specific dining room. They were trying to incorporate a small eating area to have a family around a table, which would extend into the living space, so in the living room. The kitchen was becoming, it's just not adequate size without this slight adjustment to the rear, and that's why we have, that's the addition that is partially responsible for the 41 square feet. And it's, the addition is on the exceeding of square footage is on the rear of the house, where we felt it was not as, it was not be an intrusion on the street.
Thank you.
Other questions? Commissioner Hanson?
It wasn't specifically mentioned in the architect's letter, and but I wondered, given that you're 41 square feet different from our standard, and it creates the largest house in the varying house in the neighborhood. I mean, isn't there something that could be done to get it under the required floor area ratio? It seems like a small thing. I mean, you're asking us to go beyond our standards, and it seems like a small thing to be able to try and do
Yes,
that. So
it
are there
seems-
any alternatives that you can consider to?
We've talked about it and
get
talked
this
about it, that where to find that 4-foot by 10-foot chunk out of the house. And we did one element over the stair to not build over the stairwell, or to build the stairwell so high that it actually added square footage. We've lowered that stairwell to bring that square footage down to as much as we could. With the existing footprint and this minimal, I think, size of the bedrooms upstairs, the math came out to right at 2,000 square feet. And taking 40 square feet away from the kitchen really has a huge impact on the viability of their kitchen, and especially a growing family and so forth. Without a real family room, so to speak, the space in the kitchen becomes very precious to us.
Commissioner Talsfor?
Follow-up to that, removal of the 41 square feet that's over the FAR. I'm looking at the second floor of that. I mean, I can understand you wouldn't want to take it out of the first floor. But looking at the second floor, is there not any space up there that you might consider taking out? If we're giving you some leeway here, and so, I mean, I'm looking at a specific space, and when if you did remove it and you looked at the side, it could work.
So some of the things we were considering, right, was we did that room, that great room upstairs was actually a little bit bigger to actually go to allow it to be, because we put a couch in that room because our downstairs room is about the same size, so we put a couch in it. And if you put a couch and a TV and you've got kids, there's like no room for anything upstairs. So what we did was we did originally have a second bathroom upstairs, so we actually did remove that second bathroom. That's that nook in the corner there that you see. So we actually did try to shrink that. We added the balcony because of the fact that at least we could get some more outside location that we could try to leverage between the room just to make it look bigger and open it up a little bit. And then we did take what we thought was as much possible in those bedrooms, because to have a closet and all that type of stuff, it really gets kind of small.
So I'm looking at something called the store. You have a walk-in something or other.
Walk-in closet. So
And
yeah,
then you have on the very, this is on the second floor, you have something called a storage, which is at the end of your little, refrigerator sink area. So I couldn't tell how big that was.
that's I think it's only like three feet, 3 by 5.
6.
Yeah.
So that would, you have to think about, how necessary is that when you've got the big walk? I don't want to tell you what to do.
No, yeah.
But
so,
I need to have you start thinking a little.
Yeah, so we actually went through 3 or 4 different iterations of this to try to get that square footage out. And literally, it's just that it's the upstairs is if you don't have another bathroom, you now have 2 kids upstairs with 1 bathroom and people visiting all the time. It's like that.
The
little.
Okay, the bathroom's fine.
Yeah, so that sink, though, but that storage is not. The storage is just the walk-in closet and the laundry room, right?
No, it's on the other side.
You mean the little sliver where the sink is? So we added the sink? Okay, so that would still put us over the variance, right?
I understand that, but it would go in the right direction. I mean, if when you start.
Okay. So, we would have to look at it, right, to just see what else we can do. We did try to get rid of that space. It was a lot bigger, and then we went down even further to get room out of the kitchen. So, we'd have to see what we could do to possibly work towards getting that done, yeah.
Okay. That's all for now, and I'll have other questions later. Thank you.
Didn't quite understand which door.
Any other questions? Commissioner Kane?
Mr. Peterson,
Yes.
you're an architect, and the applicants are not. So they may not understand the nuance of what happens here. It's a quasi-judicial board that you are talking
I'm
to.
having trouble. I don't know if it's an echo or something, but
Maybe it's me.
yeah.
It's a quasi-judicial procedure. We can't change language and words. We have a staff report that says setback violation exceeds FAR, largest house in the neighborhood defined as 225 in the residential design guidelines. You're familiar with these. And so I walked the property today, and I'm thinking, what are you thinking? What am I... Can you mitigate this for me, that I can ignore the staff report, the town consulting architect, and my own knowledge of neighborhood and FARs? And did you tell them this was going to be a tough road to go down?
Yes. Yes, fully understood that we were pushing 41 square feet over the so-called maximum, which is, I understand, can sometimes be not a maximum, but they, depending on site conditions and so forth. The feeling I had was that it was a justifiable request from the fact that the two combined with the small garage, the setback of the garage, combined with the 41 square feet of overage on the FAR of the house portion, we are, I believe, still 180 square feet less than the total which would be allowed if they had pushed that to the garage to the limit somehow. We would have then had to push into setbacks from the side yard, as Stefan remarked. We were very concerned to not push the side yard setback of the garage, and so it's full 8 feet or more setback to the side property line. The rear property line extension is about 2 feet, a little less at one side or the other, for about 14 feet on the back face of the garage. The rest of the house is actually outboard of the rear setback by about 21, 22 feet. So the net effect is the rear yard has as if the whole back of the house was 20 feet, the same amount of square footage. The other thing that was very important to the owner was that the detached garage just ate up practically all of the potential play space for the family in the backyard if the children are younger. And they felt that for safety reasons and one thing or another, they would much prefer to have the attached garage with the one-car storage, and then the second car storage on the driveway. So,
What is the canvas facility next to the house on the right as you look at it?
We have cars stored because we have both properties. So that's where my dad and I store our cars that we collect.
Okay. All right. You get my point, Mr. Peterson.
well, the other
It's
point
difficult.
we made was that we were very concerned with not one corner of the existing house is about 3 feet from the property line. That's why we stepped back the second floor to the extent we did to try to mitigate that, keep that as a setback that was within the guidelines of the town, which I believe is 8 feet, even on the second story. So,
Good. Thank you very much.
okay.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Good evening. The architect made 5 recommendations, and the 6th was sort of a possibility. You folks initially declined all of those. Tonight, you've indicated that perhaps recommendation number 1, which affects the angle of the roof of the porch, could be doable. I was curious as to why the other ones, some very small suggestions. For example, 3 is to add a pot shelf for visual interest, which is really minor. You said no on that. Add windows to break up the blank walls. You said no on that. 5, simplify the roof, add a window if desired. You said no on that. Now, I think we have 2 issues on this. One is the bulk and the mass and the fact that it goes over the limit. That's wholly distinct, and we have to deal with that. But the second one is, it appears you've got some relatively simple recommendations that you said no to, and I just don't understand that.
One recommendation, we did add an additional window on the side facing the neighbor's balcony during that period. This house is, as you're probably well aware, with the apartments, is very much impacted by neighbors looking in on their property. The balcony next door, we could not see. We would have to have a window there, but the blinds closed the whole time. Plus, we get west heat gain from that side of the house. So that I did add a window in the garage to help. Maybe add a little more fenestration to that side elevation. But adding a window on the upper area would look right into the children's bedroom. So that's why we resisted that one. To me, adding a pot shelf over the door is certainly something that can be done. I felt it was sort of its impact was very, very small on the design of the house. I am not one for just adding stuff to an elevation. I would see it as keeping it more interesting to keep it clean. We have a nice garage door and a window above that corresponds to that. So a pot shelf could be added, yes. I'm trying to think of some of the other recommendations.
Well, he said simplify the roof, and in paragraph 5, he said simplifying the roof and window at the stair on the rear elevation.
Oh, yes.
Would simplify the elevation. I guess what I'm saying is, you're asking us to make a big jump on setbacks and size and all that. You're asked to do some relatively small things, and whether you think they're big or small, they are small, and you say no, which I can tell you, if you have a big problem, you probably ought to address that and not argue about the small things. So now, I don't say 5 is small, I don't know, but how do you feel about a suggestion number 5?
Is that the window at the stairwell?
No, simplify the roof. Do you have a copy of this?
Yes, right on the wall. Not in my, I've got it in my head, but I don't have a copy in front of me.
Okay, that's okay, I'll read it again. 5 says, simplifying the roof and windows at the stair on the rear elevation as shown in the diagram below would simplify that elevation and bring it more into a unity with the other facades. And you folks said no. And why was that?
Well, the reason that notch is at the stairwell was our endeavor to limit the amount of square footage that relates to that the window area that he's talking about. So we create this lower roof line over the stairwell, because if you go up above that height, then you have to count that space as double square footage. So that was a response to trying to keep the total square footage as low as possible.
And how many square feet does that save?
I think we saved about 20 square feet there, yeah.
All right, thank you.
So, yeah.
Commissioner Telesfor.
Following up on that, I'm looking at the Exhibit 8, north elevation. I think that's what Commissioner O'Donnell was referring to.
Yes.
Correct? And I see a window there now.
Yes, that's to let a light into the upper hallway from the back. It's a north-facing window.
So
it's up in the area above, so we're not so worried about impact for visual people looking in the house from the apartments.
okay. And then I'd like to address another suggestion, which was you weren't happy with the pot shelf, although you did offer to move the garage forward. Is that correct? So that the second floor would appear in the rear? Or
move the whole thing forward 2 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
We
then
get
it would
caught
put the bedroom above it, recessed.
Right. In other words, if we move that garage forward 2 feet because of this angle of the side property line, we'd have to squeeze that front part of the garage down a little bit, maybe, I'm guessing, 8 inches possibly.
Okay, is that a
So,
big deal?
and we could then leave the garage or the bedroom above where it is with a little roof over the top. And I think that would be a better approach to dealing with that elevation of the garage rather than a pot shelf.
Well, and I would tend to agree with that. And the roof line, I would expect would be, on that garage, would be what?
The roof line
Yeah,
over,
if you move the garage forward,
right.
then what would the roof line look like?
There'd be a small, say if we came forward 2 feet, I would suggest a small sloping roof over that area.
So that
to
it
that
might-
would then further, like you're saying, maybe modify the look of the front elevation of the garage.
So it might kind of emulate the bedroom roof line,
Yeah,
correct?
right. It'd
And
be a
that
miniature
act-
version, yes.
And you probably could connect that to the roof, the porch roof as well.
We're dealing with a side window
Right, I
on
understand that.
on the living room, so I'm not sure about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right, so you could do that.
Yeah.
That's all for now.
We're not against everything. We'd like to modify where we can within the reason, sure.
I think it's, the reason we're asking you all of this is that your letter in Exhibit 7 really spoke against all of the suggestions, so.
Yeah, and we had some reasons for the way it was, but again, if it's pleases the commission, modifications, they are always doable, that's for sure.
Do you have any other questions? No? Thank you.
Okay.
Mike Hahn?
Thank you. My name is Mike Hahn. I'm a neighbor of Stefan and Amy's. I live at 3 Augusta Court. I've been in the neighborhood for 4 years and have seen the plans that they have proposed and completely approve of them. I have 3 small children of my own. I know Amy and Stefan are looking to try and start their own families and grow in the neighborhood, and we're excited about that. We are going to have plans of our own to improve our house. We're working on that, and hopefully I'll get a chance to present in front of you again, as Stefan and Amy are doing today, with my own plans. We live in a 1,200 square foot house, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, with 3 children under 7 years old. It pretty much drives my wife nuts. The kitchen needs to be remodeled, and we've already done some improvements on the yard and landscaping and stuff, and we have the park nearby to play outside. But internal, in the house, the bedrooms are just not up to the standards that most houses I've seen and my friends are able to purchase and buy today. Love to stay in the neighborhood of Los Gatos. Love the town, love the community, love everything it affords us, but can't afford to go buy a 3 or 4 bedroom or 4 bedroom, 5 bedroom house, 2 or 3 bedroom house in Los Gatos and change. So remodeling is probably the only option we're going to have at some point. And just want to be here to support Amy and Stefan on their plans to improve our street and our neighborhood. You've obviously driven down it and seen that it needs some updating. It needs some improvements. We love the town of Los Gatos. We love everything it affords us. But when we drive down our street each day, we could see improvements, and I see them all the time, and look forward to the opportunity and appreciate the opportunity to make those changes and improvements happen for the town, for the community, and mostly for our families and for our neighbors. That's all I had to say. I appreciate you letting me have a speech here.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Donnell?
I'm sorry, I forgot. What was your address?
The number 3 Augusta Court. So,
That's all I need to know. Thank you
Okay.
very much.
okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, normally the applicant gets an additional 3 minutes to address anything that you've heard. If you have anything else you'd like to say, you're awarded that time.
No, I'll just say thank you very much. It was actually interesting to go kind of through the process. I was worried about mixing up everything and not being able to speak because it's very overpowering, as you said, because of everything. It is like a judicial thing. So I do want to thank you very much for your time and your feedback, and we do appreciate it. And we hope that we can stick around as long as we've been here, for sure. Thank you very much.
Don't go nowhere yet. Commissioner Kane?
I thought your presentation was outstanding. I just wish you were within the guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait, no, I have a question. So I think what you've heard up here is not anything against you making modifications to your home. I agree, a growing family needs space. No one up here is going to argue that. I think what you may be hearing is there was some thought put into this. The town architect put out some recommendations, none of which were agreed upon. And oftentimes, the commission up here, we look for compromise. We want it to work for you, we want it to work for the town. So that being said, what I would like to know is, having seen the list, listening to a little bit of the struggle with going over the FAR, and because, you might say it's only 41 square feet, and someone else might say, well, it's only 100 square feet. We've been given a guideline that unfortunately we are tasked to follow. I would be very curious to know from you, the homeowner, if you're willing to go back with your architect, look again at some of these recommendations, look again at where you might be able to give a little bit to fall closer or into those guidelines, to come back to us with something that revisits these, still gives you the home you want, but perhaps brings it a little bit more in line so that we could see it again and understand that you're working with us.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's understandable. And yeah, I think, so as far as the comments on what the architect said, so the other thing is just one of the ways I looked at it, and I'm not an architect, so I'm just looking at it as an engineer and somebody who just likes the look of certain things, right? People have personal opinions, and the way we looked at the house, it looked really good, and we talked to our friends and families and all that, and they all thought it looked good, so I understand there's a status quo and there's rules and regulations on the square footage, so that we really did try to minimize as much as possible, but there's a lot of things as far as just trying to whittle here and there. So some of these were definitely, so the slopes and that type of stuff, I was just like, okay, I have no idea. So we kind of work with our architect. I do want to maintain as much of the look of the front of the house as humanly possible, because it literally was where my dad was born, where my grandmother lived, where I live now. And it's like, I do want to keep that as much as possible, right? So we did want to try to maintain some of that look, but we're open, some of these, and just some of them, like remove a room. I can't remove a kid from my idea from a family, right? So, I mean, and that's why some of them were like, wait a minute, this is just like, you don't even understand why we're doing this.
No, and
I think we're okay to address some of these for sure, and it's more technical, and those I understood the comments, and I understand because we're not architects, so to hear the feedback, it's interesting to look at it on some of those technical ones. And the pot shelf and things like that, we're actually trying to minimize, we're actually going to probably get rid of our lawn because we're in California and we're in a drought. I don't want to worry about pots, fake pants, all that type of stuff. I want to keep it simple because I don't want to pay for the water. I don't want to get fined for the 30% reduction. I mean, there's things that we were doing also to simplify. So that we're like, it's a pot shelf. What am I going to put in there? Fake plants? It's going to look gaudy? I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. So there was some definite opinion of logic of that. But yeah, based on what I've heard, the technical things, I think we're definitely willing to revisit that and see what we can do around that for sure. And we do want you to know that we did not just say, I want the square foot, just go tell them to go jump off a bridge. It's literally that we took 2 feet out of each of the bedrooms because we're like, whatever. If we could figure out a magical way to create an elevator, not have stairs, that would give us square footage back. So, I mean, there were definitely conversations we had to remove it. So we're not just saying, oh, forget the rules and regulations. We did definitely try to finagle. I'm also an engineer, so I did try to be like, well, what happens if I move this one? He's all, dude, then it looks completely ridiculous. So I'm like, okay. So we definitely did that throughout the process, and that's why part of my presentation was that it is more personal feeling on some of the things than technical. So it's good to hear the actual technical discussion, and we are definitely willing to go back and look at some of these and see what we can do.
Okay, perfect. That's what I was looking for. Don't leave yet. Commissioner Hanson?
I don't know what our final recommendation will be for you, but I wanted to go back to the square footage thing. We're tasked as a planning commission to maintain, the look and feel of the neighborhood. And I'm hearing that you guys wish the neighborhood looked different. I get that, but that's not what we're tasked as a planning commission. And so, getting back to the square footage issue, if you take away 41 square feet and are in compliance with the FAR, you're still by almost 20% larger than the largest house in your neighborhood. And so it's still pushing the edge of the envelope, even if you're in compliance. So I just want to make sure you understand that, and you don't always get everything that you want, and you may need to go back and look at what you can live with that's less than what you want.
And no, for sure, we understand that. And the other thing is that it is traditionally people don't renovate rentals, right? So our house and our next door house is rentals. You're not going to spend $400,000 in Los Gatos to put a second story when it's a rental, right? So traditionally you don't do that. So that's what our families made that decision. And now that we're staying there, if we weren't staying there, we wouldn't be doing the remodel, right? Because it's a rental. So you can get, Los Gatos is a nice place to live. You can do a lot of things on that. So the 3 of the 5 houses on the block, and then the house next door is considered North Santa Cruz, but they're part of that thing. 3 of them are the one-story houses, and they're rentals. So the other one, as Mike mentioned, is they're looking to possibly go up as well because of the family. So I mean, the transition of the neighborhood is also, we know it's not according to the rules, so that's right, you're right, it's not in the rules. But the makeup of the neighborhood is we do want to update it and go a little bit bigger, because we go down to where Swanson Ford used to be, and now they're postage stamps, two-story, ginormous things that are coming up all over the place in Las Gatas. And when I was born here, none of that stuff was there. It was more open and more spread out. So it's also the look and feel of the rest of the town growing, and we know that's not the immediate neighborhood. So we're not trying to just bust open the rules. So we understand that we're growing a bigger house, but with 2 kids and family visiting 3/4 of the year, that is hard to fit in 2,000 square feet, period. I mean, 4 people and 2 grandparents, and then my aunt, they come over, and my parents are always over. It's just, there's a lot of people. We're an Italian family. We have hundreds of people over our house all the time. So it's like you just try to host, and the reason we're doing this is because the original battle, and maybe I'm going over, but the original battle was she wanted to move back east, and I'm like, dude, I want to stay in Las Gatas. I've been born and raised in Las Gatas. I'm not leaving. And so it's like we literally had a very passionate battle, because on our first date she said we're moving to East Coast. So I'm like, no, I want to see. So the balance is that we do want to try to stay here. And this house is, you're right. When you look at us, you're like, why do you need the square footage? It's just the 2 of you. And it's not because I want this ginormous house. It's because I plan on staying there until I'm as old as my parents. So, and die in this house. So that's the other thing. I also don't want to remodel in 10 years. I'm literally going as far as we can and try to minimize based on all the rules, because to be honest, I've learned way too much about how many rules and regulations there are on touching a house. So that's just, I literally just gave you the entire last year of our lives, because this is what's been going back and forth and why we're doing what we're doing. So we know there's hardcore rules. We understand.
And you're going to write the next letter in response to all the things, because you just gave us so much more background to this, so.
And so don't tell me that, because my wife's going to kill me, because I haven't been involved as much as I do because I work too much. So I'm going to probably get divorced, but that's okay.
And then
And I
the
need the
project
great
goes
room
away.
just so I can install my computer games, but that's okay.
What are you going to do with all that room?
Yeah, Commissioner Kane, did you have a question?
You just offered a lot of material that some of the commissioners may not think is essentially relevant. But to me, I need to know where back east. Boston. That changes everything.
Are you a Yankee fan or no? Okay, that answers the question, see? No, and yeah, right, I'm sorry that I did go more personal than anything, so I know it's rules and regulations, and we're not trying to break the rules. We're really not. It's like, and you're right, I do think 41 square feet, so I literally mark off 5 by 8 and go, that's 40 square feet. Like I could, my contractor could put the board down wrong on the base floor by 6 inches, and that's 40 square feet if he goes over by a foot. So I mean, sorry, I'm an engineer. So I mean, literally, he could put the board wrong, and then you're going to tell me, are you going to tell me I have to tear down the whole house because he put a board
I don't know,
down
now
wrong?
that you said that, we're going to watch for it. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna rein it back in. Do we have any additional questions of the applicant? Okay. If not, thank you very much. I'm going to close the public portion of the hearing, and I'm going to ask if any commissioners have any questions of staff, comments, anyone want to make a motion? Commissioner O'Donnell.
I just have a comment, because I want it to be clear that we're really not talking about just rules and regulations. The very reason people like neighborhoods is because of the way they look. And then people come in and say, but I've got a special circumstance. I'm having more kids or whatever. So what I want to do basically is double the size of my home. And that isn't so bad. And then the neighbor next door says, yeah, that really looks good. Let me do that too. And then in a few years, you don't have the neighborhood you liked. You have a different neighborhood. I've been sitting here for 12 years, and I've watched the neighborhoods change. So we're not being technical when we say you will be if you got what you wanted, you'd be the biggest house in the neighborhood, but not for long, because once we do this, everybody says you did it for him, now do it for me. And I only want a little bit bigger than he had, because I've got a bigger family than he does. So zoning is not done that way. So I don't know what we're going to decide tonight, but this is not about dotting I's and crossing T's. It is about saving neighborhoods in Las Gatas. Yes, we have done some things in the past that people don't like. We have to be careful we don't do that again. So I just wanted to say that as a framework of where we're going.
Commissioner Badami?
I agree with Commissioner O'Donnell. In fact, staff was kind enough in their staff report on page 5 to outline certain goals and policies of the general plan relating to the character of the surrounding neighborhood. And it's our duty here to protect the character of the neighborhood. So I concur with Commissioner O'Donnell's thoughts on that.
Any other comments? Motion? Commissioner Talsfor?
Sure. For me, I am probably less concerned about the setback issue. And I think that the way I'm interpreting what I read in the staff report, that is actually a decision that that this body can make as to whether it's, we need to adhere to it. And I think in this case that something will probably be done to this house. And I not that I would, use this as something I would, judge other houses by, but because it is a non-conforming lot, I can understand that there would be a need that we might have to go into the setback. So that doesn't bother me as much as the idea that it would be the largest home, that many suggestions were made by the town architect that I thought were good. The one of the policies, there's also the residential design guideline, and I didn't see that quoted in here. But there's one, and I can't remember the actual standard or policy, or guideline, but it's the one that says that when you build a 2-story house next to a 1-story house, that you need to be sympathetic to that home and move your 2-story a little further away from it. So I would like you to pay attention to that as well. Anyway, so with that, I would like to make a motion. Let me get to it.
Okay.
And it would be that I would move that we continue this to a date certain, and that the applicant pay attention to the consulting town architect and the comments that were made here tonight, and then come back to us. And that would be my motion, and anybody can add in if they'd like to.
Do you have any comments or a second? Commissioner Badami?
I would second that, but I would also add to what Commissioner Talsfor was referring to in the residential design guidelines, and that would be form and mass, section 2.3.1, where you design to blend with 1-story neighborhoods that have smaller homes. So keeping that in mind.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Commissioner O'Donnell, any comments?
Yeah, I just want to comment. I'm going to support the motion, but I do want to stress we're not talking about putting flowers on the front of the house.
Right.
We really are talking about substance, which is size, bulk, and mass. So we appreciate your attitude, and we would hope you'd appreciate where we're coming from. It's a bigger picture than just your house. So,
Commissioner Hanson, then Commissioner Kane.
And I don't know if this is specific in the motion, but I want to add that I wouldn't want to see it come back without it being in compliance with the FAR.
Okay. Commissioner Kane?
Well, I think you've heard everything about paying attention to the town architect, and I think it's also important that whatever reasonable can be done to gain support of staff. It's very hard for us to overrule a staff report that says no. It's hard for me to overrule a staff report that says no. So that would be another resource for you to be guided by, their guidance on FAR, height, mass, intensity, that kind of thing. It'd be good to get a favorable report from them. And I would support the motion as well with those added comments.
All right. Before we take a vote, we need to move this to a date certain, so we need to discuss the date.
I'd suggest that maybe you have the applicant and the architect defer to see how long they think it's going to take them to prepare revised plans.
To do that, do I need to, we've done this in the past where I open up the public portion of the hearing again. All right. We are going to open up the public portion of the hearing to simply ask the question of how long you feel that it would need for you to rework some drawings to bring it back to us.
When
next-
Probably the next, I think you guys aren't meeting till August though, right?
No. Our next is July 8th, and then the 22nd.
Oh, okay.
But we need to take into consideration the staff will need to review
Right.
it, and potentially consulting architect
So-
will need to review it. So it's how long do you think it will take for you to get revised plans submitted to staff?
Couple weeks probably to get the revised plans.
Okay, 1, 2, that brings us to
Week and a
the,
half to, week and a half to you guys.
so let's take that, what's the,
22.
so that brings us.
How long would it take you guys to review it once we get the plans updated?
How long, usually a week
That's
or
to you
so?
guys.
At least a week, and then we have to prepare a staff report.
So I think
if
that-
we're looking there, we're probably looking at August 12th.
August
Yeah.
12th. Okay.
Okay. Is that going to work with you guys, August 12th?
Okay, yeah.
Okay, all right. I'm going to reclose then the public portion of the hearing then. Commissioner Talasfor?
Right. I wanted to make sure that the applicant had our direction down. I wonder if staff was taking notes or,
Staff's taking notes. There's also video, so that can be viewed by staff and or the applicant and their architect so that they can take in all of the
otherwise I was
comments.
going to say, do we need to make a list here tonight? Okay. All right, thank you.
All right. Before we take a vote, any other comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Passes unanimously. And there's no appeal or anything. We'll just see you back on August 12th. Okay. All right. The next item is a report from the Director of Community Development.
Thank you very much. Last week, the council met twice. On June 16th, they considered the appeal of the Union Avenue development that you saw, and they remanded it back to you. So with direction to reduce the number of housing units, reduce density, and that sort of thing. So the applicant will be considering some modifications, and after our review, it will be back in front of you. We will be providing to you the verbatim minutes of the town council discussion. I think we've all learned from that, so you'll be able to read their words as well as watch their video and your analysis of the revised plan. And then on June 17th, the town council adopted the North 40 specific plan with modifications and considered the statement of override, et cetera. I know Commissioner Erickson was here in the audience, and maybe some of you are watching. The ordinance does require a second reading, so that's coming back to the council on August 4th, and we will see if there's any additional changes. Otherwise, the plan will be approved. And that concludes our report.
Great, thank you. Any other commission matters? If no, meeting is adjourned.